when President Trump threatened North Korea with fire and fury if the rogue state continued its bellicose missile and nuclear tests. Hours later, Pyongyang warned of a strike that would create an enveloping fire around Guam, the Pacific island on which the United States has a crucial Air Force base. Keeping track of all of the weapons tests, sanctions and diplomatic talks can be dizzying. But the New York Times has been covering the situation closely. Here is the background, along with some highlights of our coverage, if you want a more in-depth look at the situation. 1. Does North Korea have nuclear weapons? Yes. Intelligence reports suggest that the North Koreans have figured out how to miniaturize a weapon, but not how to deliver it intact to the United States. In 2016, Pyongyang released a photograph of its leader, Kim Jong-un, posing with the country's first miniaturized nuclear warhead. We took a careful look at that image, and concluded that the bomb, about 2 feet in diameter, with a destructive yield equivalent to the atomic bombs that the United States dropped on Japan in World War II, could be carried by a long-range missile. The North has steadily been building and testing such missiles, and in July it launched a rocket that experts said was capable of reaching the mainland United States. Officials say they believe the North already possesses medium-range missiles capable of delivering a nuclear warhead to much of South Korea and Japan. But intercontinental missiles aimed at the United States would fly in an arc into space before returning to Earth to hit their targets. The North is still working on a warhead that could survive the intense heat of re-entry, as it plunges from space. In addition to test missiles, North Korea has conducted 5 nuclear tests. Each test of its nuclear capabilities has been more powerful than the last, and it appears to be preparing a 6th test. 2. What is the rest of the world doing? The United Nations Security Council unanimously adopted a resolution on Saturday to impose new sanctions on North Korea for defying a ban on testing missiles and nuclear bombs. The resolution, imposing an 8th set of sanctions in 11 years, was intended to cut the country's annual export revenue by $1 billion, about a third of its current total. However, a recent investigation by our reporters found that, despite years of sanctions, North Korea still has ways, many of them illegal, to finance its weapons program. We also found that the North Korean economy is doing surprisingly well. Merchants and entrepreneurs, thriving under the protection of the ruling party, are encouraging a building boom in Pyongyang, and there are more cars in the capital than ever before. On Monday, there appeared to be a rare opening to engage the North in diplomatic discussions. On the sidelines of a conference of Southeast Asian foreign ministers in Manila, North Korea's top diplomat held an uncommon round of talks with his counterparts from China, South Korea, and Russia. 3. What has President Trump said about North Korea? Days before his inauguration, Mr. Trump said he would prevent North Korea from developing a weapon capable of reaching the United States, tweeting, "It won't happen." In a television interview in April, he described Mr. Kim as a smart cookie. Pyongyang has long used inflammatory language, previously threatening to destroy Seoul in a sea of fire, and ordering North Korean missiles stabbed into the throat of American warships. On Tuesday, Mr. Trump invoked terms similar to those used by the North Koreans themselves, threatening to unleash fire and fury if Pyongyang endangered the United States. Our White House correspondent wrote that there was little precedent of a president using such language. North Korea warned several hours later that it was considering a strike that would create an enveloping fire around the United States territory of Guam. Secretary of State Rex W. Tillerson said on Wednesday that Americans should not be concerned about an imminent threat. "I think Americans should sleep well at night, have no concerns about this particular rhetoric of the last few days," he said, as his plane stopped to refuel in Guam, the very island that North Korea had threatened. 4. Who is at risk of attack? The United States and its allies are unlikely to end the crisis purely by military means, because preemptive action, no matter how surgical, could invite an aggressive response from Pyongyang, which has threatened to fire its missiles on Hawaii, as well as on the mainland United States. In its latest warning, North Korea threatened to strike Guam, a United States territory. Guam, a Pacific island roughly the size of Chicago, and home to about 160,000 people, is about 2,200 miles southeast of North Korea. It is an essential base for the United States military, which takes up about 30% of the island. The military was considering increasing its presence on Guam, by moving thousands of Marines there from Okinawa, Japan, according to the Associated Press. In 2013, the United States announced that it would speed up the deployment of an advanced missile defense system to the island as a precautionary move to protect its naval and air forces from the threat of a North Korean missile attack. The system, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, or THAAD, can be used to shoot down ballistic missiles, the type the North has been condemned for testing. The North also has thousands of artillery pieces positioned along its border with the South and pointed at Seoul, a mere 35 miles from the border. The arsenal is of limited range, and could be destroyed in days, but the United States Defense Secretary, Jim Mattis, has said that, if North Korea used those weapons, it would be probably the worst kind of fighting in most people's lifetimes. We recently took a detailed look at how North Korea might respond if the United States tried a surgical strike, and found that any attempt could set off a chain of events risking staggering numbers of casualties.